This week, a loaded tanker tried to run the Persian Gulf down a lane the Islamic Republic still claims to draw, and it was a US strike, not an Iranian one, that disabled it before it could breach the blockade. Sit with that, inversion, because it tells us the one thing that matters more than any missile fired this week, whether Tehran still controls the guns flying its own flag, or whether the water it insists it owns is now being policed by someone else entirely. Hold that because it sounds far away. A huge share of the world's oil and gas squeezes through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow gap between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. Brent crude, the global price marker, is already trading above $85 a barrel. That's more than 15% higher than before this war started. Every cent of that rides in the price at your pump, whatever country you fill up in. 3 players are quietly rewriting who owns that water this week. One of them is supposed to be Iran's friend. Start with the noise, because the wires are drowning in it. This was the heaviest night of strikes since the two sides signed their fragile understanding last month. U.S. Central Command, the American military's headquarters for the region, hit Bandar Abbas, the southern port that houses the Iranian Navy and the Revolutionary Guard's own facilities. That's the IRGC, the regime's parallel army, separate from Iran's regular military, a second armed force the state maintains alongside its conventional one, which tells you something before a shot is fired. Because a government that keeps 2 armies is a government hedging against its own. Beyond that one confirmed strike, the picture blurs fast. Iranian state media report explosions across a string of other provinces on the same night, but the board pins only Bandar Abbas on CENTCOM directly. The rest runs through Tehran's own outlets. Hold that seam because it matters. A regime being made to pay has every incentive to inflate the map of who is hitting it, and to fold state media claims into the same breath as confirmed strikes is exactly how a war gets talked bigger than it is. We take the one target we can source and set the rest aside as claim, not fact. Iranian officials report at least 7 of their troops killed, and the health ministry says more than 30 people dead and 260 wounded in the south in recent days. Those are real bodies. This is not a staged crisis. And Tehran hit back, not at America directly, but at America's neighbors. The Iranian army says it sent kamikaze drones at US bases in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain. The specific list of what those drones supposedly struck comes only through Iran's own state media, a claim broadcast for a home audience, not a confirmed battle damage report. So set it aside and watch the shape instead. Iran is not aiming at America. It is aiming at the countries America shelters behind, which is the move of a power that wants to raise the cost without crossing the line that brings the giant down on its head directly. Jordan says it shot down 8 missiles. Iraq's prime minister condemned drones violating the airspace over Erbil. Now here's the pattern the wire misses while it's counting explosions. Look at what Iran is actually spending. Drones, ballistic missiles, IRGC prestige. It is burning down its arsenal to defend one thing, its claim to control Hormuz. And the reframe is this: that is not the behavior of a power winning. That is the behavior of a power being made to pay for a position it cannot hold. There's a historical machine for exactly this, and it isn't 1979. It's 1983. Reagan announces Star Wars, a missile defense scheme America may never have built. And the point was never the shield. The point was the bill. It forced the Soviet Union to spend money it did not have, matching a threat it could not ignore, until the commitment hollowed the system out from the inside. Nobody invaded Moscow. Moscow spent itself to death, defending everything at once. And press that parallel one step harder, because it's the mechanism that matters. The Soviets didn't lose a battle. They lost the argument with their own budget. Every ruble poured into matching a threat was a ruble not spent on the thing that keeps a regime standing, which is the consent of the people paying for it. And the deeper cruelty of that machine is that the spending is invisible until it isn't. The missiles still fly, the parades still march, the maps still show a superpower, right up to the morning the till comes up empty. Therefore, watch Iran the same way. Not will the Strait close, but how much does defending it cost, and can the regime pay? Where that twin misleads, and I'll be honest about it, the Soviets took 8 grinding years to buckle, and Iran's economy is far more brittle. It could snap faster. But it could also hold longer than the arithmetic suggests if it still has buyers willing to keep taking its oil. And the board does not show us this week who those buyers are or whether any patron is footing the bill. That's a hole in the picture, and I'm naming it. Keep that asterisk on the whole episode. But the bill just got a lot steeper, and it came from the last direction Tehran expected, from a friend. There is a friend Tehran cannot afford to lose. Pakistan, Iran's neighbor, the country that helped broker the very understanding both sides are now shredding, spent this week doing the one thing Iran needs and cannot do for itself. It called on Washington and Tehran to stop the violence and get back to the table. Think about what that channel is worth. Pakistan is the messenger, the deniable line, the country that can carry a climb down to Washington and let Tehran dress it as a deal. That is not sentiment, it is infrastructure. A regime that has burned most of its bridges to the west still needs someone to place the call. And this week, that someone is Islamabad. Now notice what the board does not show. Iran naming Pakistan, thanking it, leaning on it in public. That silence is its own confession. The one relationship Iran most needs to keep warm is the one it says least about. Its only real move all week has been the standing threat that it, and only it, decides which vessels cross this water safely. Sit with what that threat actually admits. Iran's whole claim is that it manages this water. But a claim to manage the water is only as good as the world's willingness to route through it. And this is the loose piece the regime's script never accounted for. A chokehold is worth only what the traffic will pay to cross it. And that value evaporates the moment the world finds a reason to route around. The sticky image here is a toll booth. Iran spent decades building a toll booth on the Persian Gulf. And the cruel arithmetic of a toll booth is that the harder you man the gate, the faster the traffic learns to live without the road. Tehran cannot lower the toll without looking weak, and it cannot raise it without teaching the market to leave, and it cannot lash out at the one neighbor whose goodwill it can never buy back, because the messenger and the message run down the same wire. So why gamble the whole arsenal on a booth the traffic can already avoid? Because both sides are reading the same document and seeing two different countries. The understanding they signed last month, the MOU, the one Pakistan brokered, is doing all the work. And here's the tell. The board tells us it exists and who carried it, but not a word of what it actually says. The text stays off the board entirely. And that vagueness is not incidental, it is load-bearing. Watch how the same water reads two ways. Tehran treats Hormuz as its own. It decides the lanes. It picks who crosses. It has already called U.S. interference in the Strait a red line. Washington treats the identical strip of water as everyone's, a passage Iran is obliged to keep open. And it is enforcing that reading now, as the opening of this episode showed. A U.S. strike disabling a tanker before it could breach a blockade of the Strait itself. Not a blockade of Iran's ports, but of the choke point. Washington is policing the passage, not the country. And that distinction is the whole argument. Two governments, one strait, opposite readings, and a document loose enough to let both sign and both fight. That is not sloppy drafting. It is the whole reason the thing could be signed at all. Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagir Ghalibaf, described on the wires as Tehran's top negotiator, keeps to the language of the wronged party. Iran never welcomed war, nor do we now, he says, pressing for diplomacy even as the missiles fly. Here is the mechanism nobody's naming. That ambiguity is not a bug in the deal. It is the deal. Both governments needed a sentence vague enough to sign and vague enough to fight over later, so each could tell its own hardliners it won. And on Iran's side, the hardline reading is not a secret whisper, it is the declared position. Ask Tehran when it would ever surrender control of this water, and the answer, in every register the regime owns, is the same single word: never. But say it plainly, that word never is the sound of a card being burned. Every tanker Iran menaces buys it a few weeks of leverage and builds another mile of the world's willingness to route around. The regime is defending its most valuable chip by using it up. That's the toll booth again. The more aggressively you man it, the faster the world reroutes past you. And that's if the guns even answer to one hand anymore, which is the crack under everything. Look at how the ugliest moments get explained away. When a strike lands where it shouldn't, the board cannot tell us whose hand was on the trigger. And that blind spot is the whole danger. No official account, no named culprit, no explanation from any capital for who fired or why. Into a silence that complete, deniability writes itself. The board names no author, so the blame is free to float to whatever actor no capital has to own. And notice what I am doing. I am not reporting that anyone named a culprit. I am reading the shape of a silence that leaves the slot open on purpose. And a silence left open on purpose is worth more to both governments than any confession. Because an author no one will name is an author no one has to punish. Think about what that silence is doing. It's a laundry. It lets both governments keep pretending the understanding still breathes. Because if no one ordered the strike, no one has to answer for it. Now layer on the loudest silence on the entire board. The office that is supposed to give the final word, the supreme leader, is nowhere in this week's record. Every statement on the board comes from somewhere else. From the army, from the spokesman, from Gollyboff, from Guard Command. Not one word from the top of the chain about the regime's own declared red line. The board does not show us anyone speaking with that final authority. And in a system built entirely around one man's word, that absence is not a gap in our reporting. It is the story. When the top goes silent on its own life or death policy, and an unclaimed hand could start a naval incident, you are not looking at a chain of command. You are looking at several hands reaching for the same gun. The reframe. A machine that can't say who fired is a machine that can't promise to stop. Therefore, the real fight this week isn't between Washington and Tehran at all. It's inside Washington and between Washington and Jerusalem. Watch what the vice president just did. J.D. Vance told the Joe Rogan podcast that some members of the Israeli government tried to shape American public opinion against a U.S. deal to end the war. He did not put that into a friendly briefing room. He put it into the biggest microphone in American media, which is a choice about who he wanted to hear it. That's an American vice president saying on the record that an ally is working against his own administration's exit. Now put it next to what Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, told his American counterpart Pete Hegseth this week, that Israel is determined to keep its forces in the security zones it has carved inside Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza to protect its borders, in Katz's words, from the threats posed by jihadist forces. Follow the incentives and the read writes itself. Whatever the stated reason, an unresolved Iran war is an alibi. While the region stays hot and the cameras point at Hormuz, those occupation zones quietly harden into permanent facts, and it's Washington that eats the political cost, not Jerusalem. My read, and I'll flag it as inference, Israel is decoupling. It is nailing down its own regional gains while letting the US-Iran fight run on a separate track. Notice the asymmetry that makes this work. Jerusalem gets the facts on the ground. Washington gets the bill and public opinion. And the longer the Iran file stays open, the wider that gap can grow. The documented receipt for the split is Vance's own words this week. The rest is the pattern those words expose. Russian state media, for its part, is pushing a line that Israel's prime minister will sit with the American president on the 19th to drag him back onto Iran's nuclear file. Treat that as what Moscow wants amplified, a signal about intent, not a confirmed appointment. But here's why the war stays hot and contained rather than exploding, and it's about money and a poll number. At home, the American president is boxed in. His approval is stuck in the 30s, and that single number is doing more to shape this war than any missile fired in it. Sit with what an approval in the 30s means for a war leader. It is the floor beneath which every move abroad gets read at home as a dodge from the trouble he already owns. So every ounce of political capital he spends on Iran is capital he no longer has for the fights waiting on his own doorstep. Congress is back in Washington, and the war is turning from a foreign crisis into a domestic fight he has to spend scarce political capital just to contain. Every lever he reaches for abroad has a price tag at home, and the higher the pump price climbs, the steeper that tag gets. because a war that shows up at the gas station is a war voters feel, without ever reading a word about Hormuz. The board does not show a White House driving events at the Strait so much as being driven by them. The leverage it has is the leverage the market and the mediators hand it, not a position it seized and can hold on its own terms. That's not a man executing a plan. That's a man managing a trap. And follow where the real defensive effort is going, against Iran, not for it. The US allied Gulf states Iran is bombing have every reason, the cash, the airspace, the fear, to knock its drones and missiles out of the sky. And one of them, Jordan, already did, shooting down 8 this week. Meanwhile, no great power steps forward to defend Iran. Scan the board and you will find no patron promising to shield Tehran, no ally sending help, and total silence from a would-be patron in a client's worst week is itself a message. Nobody comes. That is the posture of a state standing alone, whatever its friendships on paper. That's the reporting. Here's our take. This week reads, not as a war spiraling out of control, but as a controlled burn dressed up as chaos. 3 reasons. First, the market. Brent is up more than 15%, but nowhere near the nearly $120 it hit at the war's peak. Traders with real money on the line are pricing this as contained, not existential. Second, the unclaimed trigger silence and the vague MOU are load-bearing fictions both governments are choosing to keep, which is what you do when neither wants the total war. Third, the market's own arithmetic gives everyone an off-ramp. As long as the price stays short of panic, the oil keeps flowing and Tehran can save face by yelling about a strait it never has to close. The best counterargument is honest and heavy. 30 dead in the south, 7 soldiers, 260 wounded. Real blood is not theater. So we hold both, a genuine lethal war underneath, with a layer of managed performance on top. If we're wrong, if this is truly spiraling, you'll see it in one number. Brent breaking well above where it sits now and pushing back toward that wartime peak near 120, then staying there. That's the market repricing this as the real thing. Stand back, and the whole board resolves into one picture. The Islamic Republic is manning a toll booth on a road the world is repaving around it, spending missiles it can't replace and command authority it no longer fully owns, to collect a toll fewer ships will pay. No great power comes to its side. Its neighbor's arm, its mediator waits. Every strike is a payment on a debt that only grows. So here's the call, and you can hold us to the date. Within 60 days, through mid-September, the Islamic Republic will not physically strike a commercial vessel as it transits the Strait of Hormuz. Rhetoric, shadowing, pressure on the traffic, yes. A missile into a merchant ship actually crossing the water it claims to toll? No, because that's the one move that teaches the world to route around it for good and proves it never controlled the strait at all. If a confirmed guard strike, seizure, or boarding of a commercial vessel happens in the strait, we were wrong. And the reason we'd be wrong is worse than the miss. It would mean that unclaimed hand is real, and no one in Tehran controls the trigger anymore. Watch 3 things. Brent's trajectory, because the market will price the truth before any spokesman admits it. Whether anyone, any navy, any coalition steps forward to guarantee the safe passage Iran refuses to promise, a role the board shows no one yet playing, and that empty chair is itself the story. And whether the silent supreme leader ever says a single word about his own red line. And watch the Iranians who have no missiles at all, the ones who, even under a regime that has spent everything it has to keep them off the streets and out of the frame, are keeping the receipts. They are the constituency no forecast tracks and every regime forgets it depends on, and the board tells us nothing about what they will do next, which is exactly why they are the variable worth watching. This regime is spending its future to defend a chokehold that's already slipping through its fingers. The people paying for that arsenal are the ones who will inherit what's left when the booth finally comes down. It's free, and it's the only signal that tells us to keep drawing the board. Bottom line, Iran is burning irreplaceable weapons in its last unified command to defend a Hormuz chokehold the world is already learning to route around. And the war stays hot but contained because no major player, including its own patrons, actually wants it to end. If this breakdown helped you see the wheat clearly, hit like. It is free and it tells us to keep drawing the board. And subscribe because the board moves every day, so you catch the pieces before they move.